There are artists with millions of followers who can't sell 100 tickets. And then there are artists with a few thousand fans who sell out every show they announce. The gap between those two artists has nothing to do with talent. Today I'm sitting down with Thatch Sammet, Director of Partnerships at Laylo, to talk about the psychology of real fan loyalty, what fans actually want, what makes them show up, and how to build a community that carries your career forward no matter what the algorithm does. This is Elevated Frequencies. Ever wonder how top DJs actually built their careers?
I had to do 15 years of hard work to get any of the recognition that I wanted.
Where I saw a turning point in my career is when I became true to myself.
From marketing and mindset to networking and negotiation, I'm giving you the tools you need to build a lasting career in dance music.
Give them bits of you and your everyday life.
You have to change the way you view the word no. Like me, I'm encouraged by it.
Join me, Olivia Mancuso, and industry leaders as we reveal what it really takes to turn your passion into profit. This is Elevated Frequencies. Let's start here. There's this assumption online that more followers equals more streams, bigger career, more everything. That's not necessarily true. And Laylo is built on a completely different premise. So talk to me about the premise that Laylo is built on.
Yeah, I think historically there's this perception that, and I think for decades we've been trained that you want to get as many monthly listeners as possible. You want to get as many streams, whether that's, a song going viral for a moment or being in a TikTok, and you want people to as many people to kind of touch your music. And with that, I mean, social media followers is, I think, deeper and more a higher level of fandom than just like a streamer. But I think Laylo really is the most potent. Like, we've been really focused on helping artists get that most potent type of fan, which is the fan that wants to buy your merch, that wants to get your vinyl, that wants to actually come out to shows. So really, we see it as you need fans to listen to your music. You need to have them listen to a TikTok and say, what's this ID? But you need to figure out how to catch that fan. Capture sounds a little evil, but how to get that fan's contact information, how to take that little spark of interest and then actually get them to listen and be aware of your tour. And so Laylo is a really simple tool. A lot of fans don't even notice it, even though probably every electronic music fan has.
I have so many touch points with Laylo. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I just now, since we've done some content together, now I scroll to the bottom of things to see, is this powered by Laylo? Whereas before it's like, it was just so naturally integrated into my life I didn't realize.
Yeah, I think just being the net, right? An artist is making amazing music, putting it out into the world, into these vast networks. And oftentimes you're putting out content and you're just a boat on the ocean and there's no fish, there's no fans that see it. Mm-hmm. But every once in a while, you're gonna have a fan that's gonna swim under the boat, and Laylo acts as a really effective net that makes it really easy and seamless, and the fan isn't necessarily having to go through a bunch of hoops to join your list and to kind of tap in. And I think in electronic music in particular, you have this ID culture and you have these buzzworthy moments and you have this amazing content from shows. So really using those moments, and Laylo hopefully is going to be the best tool to kind of collect and grow that list. And I think that's only one part of the picture, is how do I actually get those fans into my network? But the other side is, how do I actually engage those fans? How do I continue taking a fan who maybe heard one of my songs on a TikTok? How can I get them to listen to my next single and then my EP? And then when I play in New York City, how do I get them to actually come out to elsewhere, right?
Because a lot of this is grassroots right now. This is actually a really interesting point to bring up. I found an artist today, a track through randomly looking through, and I'm already blanking on his name because I literally just discovered him. Found a track I really liked while I was working out this morning. I look through some of his other songs, I go to his profile and I see he's actually following me. Then I go to DM him and I see that he's actually DM'd me before about something I was doing on Patreon. And that was like a very grassroots way to discover somebody, which I love to do. But I told him, I'm like, hey, keep me posted on your career. I want to see where it goes. Because he's still he's a newer artist.
Right.
If he had Laylo, I wouldn't have to tell him to keep me posted on his career. He could find ways to be, and I am invested because I like all the music that I found. So there's Laylo is removing that friction of me needing to remember to continuously check up on what this artist is putting out there.
Yeah, and I think, I've worked on campaigns from artists that are just starting out to Sabrina Carpenter, Nicki Minaj, Usher, and there's a very different way that you're going to interact with your fans. And so if you're an artist that's just starting out, you really need to cherish every fan. And that could be as simple as I'm doing a really small show, but I'm going to use Laylo as my guest list tool so that I can get 50 fans that came out to a free show in New York. Because maybe next year I'm playing, 100 cap, 200 cap ticketed show. So really, I think when you're starting out, it's really important to make sure those fans hear you.
Yep.
And with social media, it's a really valuable tool. But if you have 100 followers and you post something, on average, you're getting 5% to view your story or your post.
And then to get them to take action is a whole other thing. So that content that we made in partnership, the 1,000 True Fans concept, explains that you only really need 1,000 people truly invested in your career at any given moment to make a sustainable living. And so artists should do whatever they can to build those 1,000 true fans. Talk to me about what that looks like in practice for an artist to build those 1,000 true fans. What are those people actually doing to support your career? The merch, talk to me about that.
Yeah, we call it the fan wheel. Or the flywheel, so the fan flywheel. And really, Laylo's done a good job of being kind of the bridge between different things, but we're never the destination. So you're using Laylo to get people to your ticket link, to get people to your streaming link with SoundCloud and Spotify and all the DSPs, to get people to your Shopify account. But we kind of are the intermediary, which is your tool to get people to these different destinations where they can actually engage. So what you're asking about is how do you develop that flywheel, right? And artists have all of these moments in their cycle, whether it's announcing new music. That's kind of the one that comes to mind, I think, most often because everything resolves around the music. But historically, people have done a pre-save campaign. So, hey, connect to this, log into your Facebook to connect your Spotify, and then when the song comes out, it's going to be already liked. And that's a valuable tool. It helps the algorithm. Right when that song comes out, it immediately is liked by however many people pre-saved it.
Right.
If that fan happens to stream music via their liked songs, then you're going to get a boost in day one streams. But largely, that's kind of the end of that relationship. That action is the music saved. So Laylo looks at it as, instead of just going for the pre-save, let's try to collect the fan's phone number, collect the fan's email. And when the song comes out, we're not only going to do the Spotify save, we have that functionality, but we're also going to actually tell the fan, hey, this song is out. Let me know what you think. Engage with me.
Which we need. Humans now we have so many distractions. There's so much going on that if I'm opting in to something that I like, yes, text me and remind me.
Yeah.
I need that at this point because of everything. There was 2 big songs that came out, I think, last Friday. It was a Goodfella track and that Dean
Acting Tough.
Yeah, that came out. And it's I forgot until a couple of days later because just life, So and I'm sure they have, one of them probably has Laylo. If I would have signed up, that would have been really nice to be reminded.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a perfect example. I wanted to talk about this because the Dean Turley Acting Tough has been obviously a huge moment. I bet a lot of people are talking about it this week here. Probably millions of engagements on social media.
Yeah.
It's signed to a label in the UK and they have a pre-save tool out there. And there's all of this buzz around this song. Dean Turley has 10,000 Instagram followers. It's growing quickly. And I'm not going to say he's doing anything wrong. I think there's going to be a lot of growth for him, and there's a lot of eyes on him. Like, he'll be successful. But I just think about this moment. You have 3 million to 5 million engagements with this song. If you had taken this opportunity to have a Laylo drop where you're collecting emails and phone numbers, you now are really changing the trajectory of your career as an artist, because he's going to have 5,000 fans in New York City that are signing up for the ID, acting tough. So when he next does his show with tech support where he's going to get booked, tech support's going to pay him more because he's going to be able to get that many more seats.
100%.
So that's the flywheel, is like using the viral music moment to build up the fan base, to then have this understanding of your fan base where when you play in Nashville, you have 500 fans there.
Right.
You know?
This is what I would say too. I'm sure you agree with this. It's never too early to integrate these tools, because 10,000 followers, you might not expect something to blow up that big, that fast, and you want to be ready for when that moment hits.
I think it's in an interview like this, it's exciting to bring up like these insane viral moments, right? That's when your boat is bringing the net through a school of a million fish, right? For most artists, that doesn't necessarily happen, all the time or ever. But I think it shows you like a really clear opportunity of it. For most artists, it's something that you're doing by meeting people at the show.
Right.
You're doing it by having, I have one artist, Austin Millz, who's really awesome. And he's been touring for a couple years. And almost every show that he does, he posts a story on his Instagram and he says, yo, Austin, Texas, I'm picking a few fans to come backstage.
Yeah.
Reply ATX.
Yeah.
And he'll get 300 fans that sign up, and he'll pick 2 on Instagram.
Yep.
And all 300 fans are now in his Laylo account. He has their contact. And next time he comes to Austin, he's going to play a bigger show.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's so powerful.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. And again, Laylo isn't doing anything crazy. We just make that really easy and frictionless for the fan, so that net is going to catch as many of those fish. They're not going to fly through.
100%.
Yeah.
Owning fan data sounds really corporate, and I think there's some resistance around that. But what you're actually doing is you're creating intimacy. So what do you obviously the artists who come work with you understand the, how awesome Laylo is. But what would you say to those artists who feel that's weird corporate,
I think it's interesting. The owning fan data is, it's kind of what it's been coined, but really Laylo is enabling the most direct communication between what you actually like and the fan.
Yeah.
Right. As a fan, I love this band.
Right.
I want to hear directly from that band. Historically, the way you get communications from that band is from Live Nation.
Right.
Who gets all the data from a tour, or Bands in Town, who, when you sign up for a Bands in Town, you're actually giving your fan data to
Which
Bands in Town.
Doesn't necessarily benefit the artist. How many times I've spoken to artists who are I don't know what this show did because they wouldn't share the information.
Right, exactly. So we, I think, have taken it right to, we want to be direct to fan. We don't want you to know what Laylo is. The artists aren't signing up for a Laylo. The fans aren't signing up for Laylo.
Right.
It's fully direct communication. Now, I think the concept of marketing being annoying is something I think we all understand with signing up for e-commerce SMS. You get 10% off if you sign up for text. But I think we're heading into a world where people know how to opt out. Yeah. People know how to reply stop. People know how to unsubscribe. And they're going to be more picky with what they're subscribed to. But that's actually healthy. I always tell artists, if there's a fan that maybe was a fan of yours 10 years ago and you're importing your SMS list, maybe for a more legacy band, you want those fans to kind of say, oh, I'm not interested in this right now.
Right.
And you want to always be collecting new fans that it's at the top of their mind and the top of their interest. Yeah. And so Laylo's in a good position for that, because no one really loves Urban Outfitters.
Right, they send a million texts.
You get 8 texts a week, and people are still on those lists.
Right.
Artists oftentimes will come and be scared of sending 1 text a month.
Right.
And I think, in reality, your fans as artists like care about what you're doing.
Perfect example. So house calls. I'm friends with all the house calls people out in Chicago. They use Laylo.
Sick.
I always and this is not me like patting myself on the back, but like I always buy tickets to shows. I don't ask for guest list very often because I like to support, and I think what goes around comes around.
Very cool.
So I sign up for their Laylo text, and there's this DJ who I've been dying to see in the States, Alicia. We saw her out in Amsterdam.
Sick.
And I got the text that Alicia was coming to house calls, and I got first access to those tickets. They were, very affordable, and they didn't announce the show till midnight. And I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Like that I got, made sure we got our tickets because I'm sure it's going to sell out. And like that was such a great use case for Laylo, for someone like me who's been waiting to see an artist I know she's playing in the States, but never played in Chicago before. And I got that access. I feel so good as a fan. Like that feels like a reward.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, which is you do need to provide value.
Yeah.
And again, Laylo has two sides. One is collecting the data, like getting fans to actually join your list, which I think is what Laylo does better than anyone else by far, is our conversion. But then there's the other side of it, which is you owning the data and like actually communicating with your fans. Mm-hmm. And when you're collecting the data, there's got to be a reason. Right. I think historically, I talk about this all the time, but like 15 years ago, artists had a footer of their website that said, join my newsletter for stuff.
Yeah.
Like sign up for my newsletter.
Yeah.
And as a fan, you're like, okay.
But what are you going to
What's the point of that?
Right.
And then now even more modern is pre-save my new song. And it's like, okay, I can take this action and then like it adds it to my library and I can.
Yeah.
So really the more tangible you can make it, the more fans are going to be able to react. So the most common things that we see always, track ID is like ultimate incentive. If you sign up, you're going to hear this song as soon as it's out on DSPs.
Right.
The classic, what's the ID? Bootlegs for DJs is really common. So I'm going to tease this song. I can't maybe put it on Spotify because it's a bootleg, but if you sign up, I'll send you the download file. Right. And now you're in my list.
Skrillex did that, but with his own music. He did it in a really big way. Where he's like, and it crashed Dropbox, right? Because he's like, if you like music, sign up and I'll send you some stuff. And then,
Skrillex notoriously dropped his whole album via Dropbox the day before it hit DSPs.
Yeah.
Which no comment on the legal, however that went down, but it was a really powerful moment of like that direct to fan communication.
Yeah.
And Skrillex, like working with Sony's team, just wanted it to be really like, I remember setting up an email template with their team, and he didn't want it to have any design or aesthetic. He wanted it just to be like someone opened Gmail, sent an email, Dropbox link, dash.
So smart.
So really cool, just like creating that exclusivity and that value for fans to be in the list.
So IDs, merch, talk to me, we know those two things. Talk to me about what fans actually want, because it's not more content. It's just exclusive first access. What are some other things? Like if an artist is listening to this and thinking, okay, maybe I'm not producing so much music yet, but like I'm more of a selector or whatever. Like what are some of the other things that people want that a tool like this can give them?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple ways and strategies. In our guides, we have like hundreds of these, but the most common things that we see artists dropping, which is the concept we use a lot, is tickets. And if you think about tickets, what is the incentive for a fan? It's number one, if the show sells out, that fan misses out. Right. Number two, if you get a notification right when those tickets go on sale, you're going to get the lowest price. So, and number three, pre-sale code. Maybe you can't access tickets unless you have a code. So there's the incentive, is like, what's the point of me signing up for this? It's that I'm going to get first access before it sells out at the lowest price.
Yep.
And that's why every festival, every promoter is doing pre-sale registration campaigns. And merch is interesting. I think a lot of artists are not doing enough merch.
It's got to be good merch, though.
It's got to be good. You got to be creative. My favorite merch store that we work with a lot is Griz. And Griz has spent years building this segment of his fan base on Laylo that they have signed up for his list in exchange for an hour of early access to his Shopify store for every merch drop. So he'll do a merch collection that has like maybe 5 items that will run out really quick, like a signed vinyl or like limited edition items. So his diehard fans know that if they're not getting that early access, it's going to be sold out before. Right. So he's created this culture of like drops.
Sneakers have been dropped on, like, that's like before artists did it, like people who like sell sneakers and stuff. I've been doing it for years. Yeah,
drops came from Supreme.
That stresses me out. I'm not gonna lie. Trying to like get access to something, like, it's fun, it's a rush, but wow, it's stressful. So it definitely creates like FOMO. That good tension. Yeah, the FOMO that people want. And going back to what you said about the people who are gonna spend on early bird, I remember someone else told me on this show, you don't want to look at the fan that spends the most, you want to look at the fan that spends the least, because that means they're buying your early bird tickets. And I was like, wow, that is so true. You want the people who are in there, like as soon as you, and I am that person for like a lot of things. Like, there's just no questions asked. Like, as soon as I see something announced for a specific artist that I like, I'm like, why would I even hesitate?
Yeah, 100%. And that actually, in the last year in the Laylo app, we've been building a much deeper fan profile system. So if you ever have been in Laylo, you can basically open up a fan and it shows you just a ton of interaction data, like engagement data. So a year prior, we would show like how much they spent on your Shopify, their location, their Instagram follower count, like, whatever data we could pull. But now we're actually starting to track and source if they've ever clicked on a link, if they've ever texted your number back, if they've ever purchased tickets. It's all standard data that
this is what every company is doing.
So as an artist, you can now filter your fan base and say, hey, these are the top 10% of fans that are really engaging with me. Maybe I want to filter these fans and give them a first listen.
That's really cool.
And something exclusive. And then again, that's reinforcing the value of being an engaged community member, right?
Yeah.
Being in the in the fandom.
It changes so much. Like, I'll never forget, there was an entrepreneur that I was a fan of, and I would share some of his quotes like on Twitter. This was years ago, like on Twitter and stuff. And out of nowhere once, I got an email from someone on his team saying, oh, he's hosting like a dinner in Chicago, inviting some like young entrepreneurs to, whatever. And I'm like, how did you guys find me? And I think they did that like Grassroots, like they were filtering for people in Chicago who like had shared some of his content before or whatever. Right. And I couldn't go because but I was like, I'll never forget that, like how special that made me feel. I mean, obviously there was like money at play here, right? It was like a ticket for his event, but it was an exclusive small roundtable conversation. And that really can change the perception. That can take people from like big fan of yours to like ultimate if you play your cards right. Yeah,
100%. I think, and that's where having the direct communication, like you post on your story, 5% of your followers will see it. Meta wants you to pay for ads.
Yeah,
they want to make, they make a lot of money off ads by limiting that exposure. If you send a Laylo blast, every fan gets it through their AirPods on Siri. Right. So just like having that mass mind control device. Yeah. It's the evil Mojo Jojo way of explaining it. But
we're saying it out in the open, so it's good.
Again. So I think owning that relationship with your fans allows you to take them from, I kind of like you. Yeah. I kind of like your music. That was a cool song. To like, oh, I want to actually come out to your show. Right. Right.
So talk to me about why artists should not chase like virality as their main goal.
So virality obviously is beautiful when you get it. We were talking about Dean Turley and this moment where there's a lot of fans that you can potentially collect and kind of have in your ecosystem, in your community. But it's very difficult to actually make happen.
Yeah,
you can
sustain.
spend years and years trying and never being successful.
Right.
And also a lot of virality happens from the micro community that you have. You have a new song, maybe the first 15 super fans are using that song on TikToks. That's when the virality can happen. So instead of focusing on this expansive, let's get 100 million streams, you should focus on building that initial community that will actually, be your early supporters. And that's more likely, that effort in creating this smaller community of fans that really care is oftentimes going to lead to virality better than just trying to go viral.
100%.
Right.
So a couple more questions for you. For the artists listening to this who are working hard at their careers, what is that first step that someone should, because using the Dean example, like 10,000 followers, like that's an accomplishment for a lot of artists, but you're not massive yet. What is that first step that the people listening can take to start implementing some of these tools, especially if they don't necessarily have a ton of music out yet? Like, how can they start building more touch points with the people that are following them?
Yeah, 100%. It's starting to build your community, starting to figure out, maybe you have 20 fans that actually care about your music right now. You should really look at that relationship with those 20 fans and figure out what they like and reward them. So if you're doing a show in a certain city, you should figure out how to communicate with those fans that have been day ones and get them to come out and support. Those are the fans that are going to tell their friends about it and are going to bring their friends to your next show when you come back, and they're going to be posting stories and saying, oh, I loved this specific artist. So I think honing in, of course, make great music, check all the boxes. You have to put out content. You have to have your Spotify updated, as that's where the fans are existing in the ecosystem, but you need to start to focus on really, how do I develop these deeper relationships? And I think looking ahead with AI and a lot of crazy things happening to the music industry, it's going to be about that 1,000 true fans is going to be worth more than 1 million that just passively are listening.
Yeah.
So, and that 1,000 true fans is something that's really realistic to develop, It just takes dedicated effort in that. And I think so many artists just from the last decades of pre-save, DSP, Spotify playlists, they aren't thinking about that side of it as much.
Yeah.
So Laylo exists as just a tool to make that easier.
I love that answer.
Yeah.
Last question for you, and I love that we're going to touch on this at Nexus tomorrow. What's a principle of community that every artist should internalize before worrying about the tools? Like, what do they need to know about what community actually is?
You have to understand that, like, at the end of the day, you are building a community, and your goal is entertainment. Your goal is to provide value, and a lot of your fans are going to be using your creations and your music to meet other fans, to actually share with the world themselves. So many people that are in the electronic music world are sharing IDs with each other. So I think it's just really important to understand that your goal here is to entertain and like create an environment where a fan can really live in and have pride in like being
part of your
being
fandom.
part of your fandom.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, thank you for doing this. I was always a fan of what you guys did before, but now working with you a little bit and seeing how you're just changing the game for artists, I love everything you do.
Awesome. Well, appreciate taking the time, and I'll see you at the Nexus event tomorrow.
Hell yeah. If anything we talked about today resonated, start building your list. Laylo is the tool I would recommend for this. Use code Olivia15 at signup and you'll get 15,000 messaging credits free, plus 3 months of Instagram comment integration. The link is in my show notes. Stop waiting for the algorithm to do it for you.